The plan was simple: graduate, get a job 3 states away, and ghost them. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to ask for my money back. I was just going to disappear. And for a minute, it worked. 2 months before graduation, I landed a position at a top financial firm in Chicago. Starting salary, 6 figures. Enough to pay off my loans and rent an apartment with a doorman, one who would never let my parents in. When I signed the offer letter, I felt light, weightless. I printed it out and hid it under my mattress, terrified that if I spoke about it, the universe would hear and snatch it away. But the universe didn't snatch it. My father did. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from the hiring manager in Chicago. Her voice, which had been warm during the interviews, was ice cold. "Jade, we're rescinding the offer effective immediately." I dropped my coffee mug. It shattered, splashing hot liquid over my feet. What? Why? I passed the background check. I sent my transcripts. "We received troubling new information regarding your psychological stability," she said stiffly. "We were informed that you have a history of violent outbursts and theft, and that you are currently off your medication. We can't have that liability." "That's a lie," I screamed. "Who told you that?" A concerned family member called our ethics line. They said you were trying to flee the state to avoid a mental health intervention. Good luck, Jade. Click. I stood in the middle of my dorm room, shaking. A concerned family member. I didn't call them. I didn't scream. I got in my car and drove home for the weekend, pretending everything was fine. I waited until my father went to play golf and my mother was busy giving Bella a pedicure. I logged into my father's iPad. He's arrogant. He never changes his passwords. I found it in the sent folder, not an email to the company, but a log of a call he made, recorded by his VoIP app. He records all his business calls. This one was labeled Chicago Problem. I put on his headphones and pressed play. I heard my father's voice. Smooth, professional, fake. "Yes, this is Robert Holloway. I'm Jade's father. It breaks my heart to make this call, but my daughter is unwell. She's manic. She stole $18,000 from us just recently. We're trying to get her help, but she's running away to your company. If she has an episode in your office, I can't be held responsible." I sat there, listening to him murder my future. He painted me as a criminal and a lunatic. Why? Because if I had a job in Chicago, I couldn't drive Bella to her appointments. If I had my own money, I wouldn't need to ask them for food. If I left, the servant was gone. He destroyed my career to keep his free labor. I copied the audio file to a USB drive. Then I went to the cloud and downloaded everything. Tax returns, Bella's medical bills, bank statements. I saw transactions that made no sense. Consulting fees, paid to a shell company in the Cayman Islands. Insurance payouts for Bella's treatments that went straight into my father's personal investment account. It was just abuse. It was fraud. Massive federal-level fraud. I didn't go back to the dorm. I drove straight to a law firm downtown. I didn't have money, but I had a case. I met a lawyer named Mr. Sterling. I played him the tape. I showed him the bank transfers. He looked at me over his glasses, his eyes gleaming. "Jade," he said softly, "do not say a word to them. Act normal. Go to graduation. Let them think they won. And on the night of the party, we will burn their house down. Legally speaking." So, I put on my cap and gown, I walked the stage alone, and now, as I stare at the security footage of them partying in the backyard, I know one thing. I'm not going home to cry. I'm going home to serve the warrant. The party ended not with a toast, but with Miranda rights. I stood on the driveway and watched as my parents were placed into separate patrol cars. My mother was still sobbing, her mascara running in dark streaks down her face, screaming that this was all a misunderstanding and that she knew people in the governor's office. My father was silent. He looked at me through the window of the cruiser as it rolled past. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked terrified. He knew that the FBI doesn't raid a garden party unless they already have the evidence to bury you. The guests scattered like roaches when the lights turn on. The neighbors who had just been pledging thousands of dollars were now rushing to their luxury SUVs, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal. That left Bella, the golden child, was standing alone in the middle of the ruined patio. The inflatable screen behind her was finally dark. The catering staff was packing up, demanding to know who was going to pay them. Bella looked at the empty house, then at me. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the center of attention. She was just a girl in a bikini standing in the wreckage of a crime scene. "You ruined everything," she screamed, her voice shrill and trembling. "They took Mom and Dad. Who is going to pay for the house? Who is going to pay for my treatments? How am I supposed to live?" I walked over to the table where the donations bucket had been. It was empty, taken into evidence by the agents. "You're not sick, Bella," I said calmly, "and as of tonight, you're not rich either. The accounts are frozen. The house will likely be seized to pay restitution. But I can't work," she wailed, tears streaming down her face, real tears this time. "I have anxiety. I have a condition." I looked her up and down. The girl who could do a keg stand in the Alps but couldn't work a register. "I suggest you get over it," I said. "Starbucks is hiring, and I hear they offer great health insurance." I turned my back on her. She kept screaming my name, but I didn't stop. I walked out the side gate, down the driveway, and to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. The silence inside the car was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It felt like oxygen. I pulled my phone out. I had one more email to send. I opened the draft I had prepared for the hiring manager in Chicago. I attached the police report number and the affidavit for Mr. Sterling proving that the concerned family member was currently in federal custody for fraud. Subject: regarding my employment eligibility. Message: the liability has been removed. I hit send. I looked in the rearview mirror. The flashing blue lights of the police cars were fading in the distance. My childhood home, the place where I was made to feel small for 22 years, was shrinking behind me. I touched the graduation cap still pinned to my head. They wanted me to be a nurse. They wanted me to be a servant. They wanted me to be a victim. Instead, I became the one thing they never saw coming. I became the witness. I started the engine and drove away. I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night, and I didn't care. For the first time in my life, the road ahead didn't belong to them, it belonged to me. Have you ever had to burn a bridge to save yourself? Tell me in the comments. And if you believe that justice is best served cold, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. They didn't just skip my graduation from Duke, they faked a medical emergency to make sure I felt guilty for being there. I stood at the podium, the summa cum laude medal heavy around my neck, staring at 3 empty chairs in the front row. The university had reserved them specifically for the family of the valedictorian. Now they were just gaping holes in the crowd, mocking me. The dean whispered, "Jade, are you ready?" I nodded, forcing a smile that felt like shattered glass in my mouth. I gave the speech. I thanked the faculty. I spoke about truth and integrity. And the whole time, my phone was vibrating against my hip. As soon as I walked off stage into the shadows of the wings, I pulled it out. 12 missed calls from my mother. 1 text message. "Bella is having an episode. Chest pains. We're rushing to the ER. Come home now." How could you leave us alone when she's like this? My stomach dropped. For a second, just a split second, I felt that familiar panic, that programmed reflex to drop everything, abandon my life, and run to serve Bella, my younger sister. But then, another notification slid down my screen. This one wasn't from Mom. It was from our home security system. Motion detected. Backyard patio. I clicked the notification. The live feed loaded. There was no ambulance. There was no panic. There was Bella. She was wearing a bikini, lounging on a pool float, holding a mimosa. My parents were there too, laughing, clinking glasses. My father was grilling steaks. They weren't at the ER. They were throwing a party, a graduation party. Jade, it read. Bella, survivor. I stared at the screen until the pixels blurred. The heat in my chest turned cold, ice cold. I didn't reply. I didn't cry. I just took a screenshot. That was the moment the daughter died and the prosecutor was born. My father stepped in front of me, blocking the guest's view. His face was red, sweating. "Give me the remote, Jade," he whispered, his voice shaking with menace. "Go to your room, or I swear to God I will have you committed tonight." Committed? I smiled. Like you had my job offer committed to the trash? I raised the remote high in the air. I'm not having a breakdown, Dad. I'm having a presentation. I pressed the button. On the 20-foot inflatable screen behind us, the tragic black and white photo of Bella vanished. The screen went black for a second. Then, audio blasted through the high-end outdoor speakers. Yes, this is Robert Holloway. My doll, yes, this is Robert Holloway. She's manic. The guests gasped, staring at the speakers. His own voice, crystal clear, echoed over the manicured lawn. Then, it wasn't a medical chart. It was a split screen. On the left, a copy of the email my parents sent to donors claiming Bella was bedridden in a Swiss clinic. On the right, a video from Bella's private TikTok, dated the same week. She was doing a keg stand at a ski lodge in Stad, wearing a shirt that said "Après ski, bitch." "Oh my God," Mrs. Gable whispered. "Turn it off." Mom screamed, scrambling toward the projector unit. "She hacked it. It's a deep fake." But I wasn't done. The next slide flashed up. It was a PDF of the insurance claims. Service provider, Jade Holloway, RN. Amount paid, $240,000, 4 years. "I'm not a nurse," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "I have a degree in finance from Duke, but apparently, for the last 4 years, I've been billing Blue Cross Blue Shield for 6 figures of care I never provided." I looked at the crowd. "You didn't donate to a sick girl. You donated to a criminal enterprise. And you," I pointed at Bella, who was trying to hide behind her cashmere blanket, "you're not dying. You're just hungover, you bitch." Bella screamed, jumping up from the chaise lounge with remarkable agility for someone with failing lungs. She charged at me, but she never reached me. A loud, authoritative pounding came from the front gate. It wasn't a guest. The wooden slats shook with the force of it. "Federal agents, open the gate." The music stopped. The murmurs died. My father looked at me, all the color draining from his face. He looked like a corpse. "What did you do?" he whispered. "I didn't do anything," I said, stepping back as the side gate was kicked open. "Mr. Sterling did. He sent the files to the FBI's insurance fraud division this morning. Happy graduation, Dad." 6 agents and windbreakers swarmed the patio. They didn't look at the hors d'oeuvres. They looked straight at Robert and Linda Holloway. "Robert Holloway, Linda Holloway," the lead agent barked, flashing a badge. "You are under arrest for wire fraud, insurance fraud, and identity theft." My mother shrieked as they grabbed her wrists. The sound was piercing, primal. She tried to pull away, knocking over a table of champagne flutes. Crash! Glass shattered everywhere. My father didn't fight. He just stared at me. He looked small, defeated. "Jade," he pleaded, the handcuffs clicking shut with a metallic finality. "We're your family." I looked at him, then at the screen where his fraud was still looping. "No," I said, "you're just my first case." The study was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the humidity and the hum of conversation drifting in from the patio. I could see them through the slats of the blinds. It looked like a grotesque pantomime. My father was standing near the projector screen, which was currently displaying a black and white photo of Bella looking wistful in a hospital bed. I recognized that photo. It was taken 3 years ago when she had her wisdom teeth removed. They had cropped out the oral surgery sign and applied a filter to make it look like an oncology ward. I sat down at my father's desktop. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, possessed by a cold, mechanical precision. I located the file running the Outgour presentation, Bella_fundraiser_V4.pptx. I opened it. Slide 1, a fight for breath. Slide 2, our financial burden. Slide 3, how you can help, direct wire info. I minimized it. I plugged in my USB drive. The computer chimed softly. I dragged my file onto the desktop. The Real Holloway Story MP4. Then I opened their presentation again. I went to the climax slide, the one where they ask for money, and I deleted their video. I replaced it with mine. I set it to autoplay. I saved the file. Outside, the music faded. My father tapped the microphone. The feedback squeal made a few guests wince. "Thank you all for coming," Robert Holloway said, his voice thick with practiced emotion. He adjusted his tie. looking every inch the beleaguered patriarch. I know many of you expected to see our eldest daughter Jade here tonight. It was her graduation day, supposedly. A murmur went through the crowd. I leaned closer to the window. Sadly, he continued, bowing his head, Jade is battling her own demons. She's unwell. We tried to get her into a facility in Chicago, but she refused. She's currently resting inside, heavily medicated. We ask that you don't disturb her. It's hard, you know, having one daughter fighting for her physical life and the other fighting for her sanity. My jaw tightened until my teeth audibly clicked. He wasn't just explaining my absence. He was setting up the narrative for when I inevitably cut contact. Jade's crazy. Jade's off her meds. Poor us. But tonight is about Bella, he said, brightening up. Our warrior. We have a goal tonight of $50,000. This will send Bella to a holistic respiratory sanctuary in Bali. The crowd clapped. Mrs. Gable wiped a tear. Bella waved weakly from her chaise lounge, managing to look both tragic and smug. I looked at the Sover's uniform my mother had tossed onto the chair. A black apron, a white button-down, the uniform of the invisible. I picked it up, and I threw it into the trash can. I didn't change out of my dress. I didn't take off my heels. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out the one thing they didn't want to see, my graduation cap. The one with the Duke logo and the year 2025 embroidered on the tassel. I pinned it to my head. I checked the computer one last time. The presentation was cued. The remote control was in my hand. I walked to the sliding glass doors that led to the patio. I unlocked them. My father was raising his glass. To family, he said, and to sacrifice. I slid the door open. The sound of the rollers on the track was heavy and loud. Heads turned. To sacrifice, I said, my voice projecting clearly across the silent yard. I think that's a great toast, Dad. Let's talk about who exactly is being sacrificed. My father froze. My mother dropped a tray of napkins. Bella's eyes went wide. I stepped onto the patio, the remote in my hand, the valedictorian of Duke University crashing her own funeral. My sister Bella has been dying for 22 years. She is the healthiest terminal patient you will ever meet. It started when we were kids. If I got an A on a spelling test, Bella suddenly had a migraine so severe she needed the lights out and Mom stroking her hair for 6 hours. If I won a track meet, Bella developed a mysterious limp that required weeks of physical therapy, which, coincidentally, always took place during my practice time, so I had to quit to drive her. She wasn't just the golden child, she was the glass child, fragile, precious, the center of the universe, and me. I was the insurance policy, the spare parts, the wallet. My mother, Linda, called it the family duty. Jade, she'd say, handing me a stack of medical bills while I was trying to study for the SATs. You're the strong one. God gave you strength so you could carry your sister. I believed it. God, I was so stupid. I actually believed that me working double shifts at a diner at 16 years old was a noble sacrifice. I remember the day I got into Duke. It was the proudest moment of my life. I had a full ride for tuition, but I needed money for housing and books. I wasn't worried, though. I had been saving since I was 14, babysitting, waitressing, tutoring. I had $18,000 sitting in a savings account. I ran downstairs, acceptance letter in hand. Mom, Dad, I did it. My father, Robert, didn't look up from his iPad. I whispered, the paper shaking in my hand. That's nice, honey, Mom said, turning back to the kettle. But we have bad news. The specialists in Switzerland, they don't take insurance. We need to send Bella to that Alpine respiratory clinic. I felt a cold prickle on my neck. Okay, I hope she feels better. We knew you'd understand, my father said, finally looking at me. We transferred the funds this morning. What funds? Your savings account. He said, like he was talking about the weather. Since you were a minor when you opened it, my name was on it too. We drained it. Bella needs clean mountain air, Jade. Don't be selfish. You can take out loans. Bella can't take out a loan for her health. I stood there, paralyzed. $18,000. Gone. 2 weeks later, I saw photos on Bella's private Instagram. There was no clinic, no doctors. It was a ski resort in Jad. She was posting selfies with hot instructors, drinking hot chocolate, captioning them, "Number healing journey, number warrior." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. If I thought back, I was the monster attacking a sick girl. So I took the loans. I worked 3 jobs in college. I ate instant noodles while they ate fondue in the Alps on my dime. But the real twist wasn't the money. It was what happened 6 months ago, right before graduation. I realized they weren't just using me to pay for today. They were making sure I could never leave tomorrow. My phone sat on the passenger seat, silent. No more calls, no more frantic texts about the ER. They assumed I was obeying. They assumed I was rushing home, terrified, ready to drop to my knees and beg for forgiveness for being selfish enough to graduate. They had no idea I wasn't bringing an apology. I was bringing an indictment. As the miles blurred, I thought about the specific file Mr. Sterling had pointed out earlier that day. It was the linchpin, the smoking gun. It was a series of invoices submitted to our health insurance provider over the last 4 years. My parents had been billing the insurance company for in-home specialized nursing care for Bella, $5,000 a month. The nurse listed on the forms, Jay Holloway. Me. They had listed me as a licensed care provider. They forged a nursing certification number. They claimed I was working 40 hours a week administering respiratory therapy. I wasn't a nurse. I was a student, and I never saw a dime of that money. They were cashing checks in my name, effectively stealing my identity to defraud an insurance company, all while I was pulling all-nighters studying for exams they didn't care about. That's why they sabotaged the Chicago job. That's why they stole my savings. It was just that they needed me to drive Bella around. It was that if I moved away, the fraud would collapse. They couldn't bill for a live-in nurse who lived 3 states away. I was a hostage to their payroll. I pulled onto our street. It was lined with luxury SUVs. The neighbors were out in force. My parents were popular. They played the role of the suffering saints perfectly. Everyone loved the Holloways, the brave family fighting for their tragic, beautiful daughter. I parked 3 houses down so they wouldn't see me coming. I didn't take my suitcase. I just took my purse, clutching the USB drive inside like it was a grenade. I walked up the driveway. I could hear the music, soft, sympathetic, acoustic guitar, the kind of playlist you choose when you want people to open their wallets. I stepped through the side gate into the backyard. It was sickening. There were white linens on the tables, centerpieces made of lilies, and everywhere, photos of Bella looking pale and tragic, probably filtered. And there she was, the survivor. Bella was sitting on a chaise lounge like a queen, wrapped in a cashmere blanket despite the 80-degree heat. She held a glass of champagne in one hand and a tissue in the other, dabbing at dry eyes while a circle of neighbors cooed over her. "She's so brave," Mrs. Gable whispered, loud enough for me to hear. "I heard she almost went into cardiac arrest this morning. And Jade wasn't even here," another neighbor tesked. "Can you imagine?" Leaving her family in a crisis to go walk across a stage. The selfishness of that generation. I felt the blood boil in my veins, hot and fast. I walked into the center of the patio. My mother saw me first. She didn't look relieved. She didn't look happy. She looked annoyed. She marched over to me, her heels clicking on the pavers. A tight plastic smile plastered on her face for the guests, but her eyes were pure venom. "You're finally here," she hissed, gripping my arm hard enough to bruise. "Do you have any idea how bad you look?" Mrs. Higgins asked where you were, and I had to tell her you were stuck in traffic. "I was at my graduation, Mom. You know, the one you skipped." "Lower your voice," she snapped. "This isn't about you. Look at your sister. She's fragile. We're holding a fundraiser for her new treatment in Bali. Now, go inside, take off that ridiculous dress, and put on the server's uniform. The caterer is short-staffed, and we need you to pass the hors d'oeuvres." I stared at her. They skipped my graduation. They lied about me. They stole from me. And now, at my own homecoming, they wanted me to serve pigs in a blanket to the people funding their fraud. "The uniform," Mom repeated, shoving me toward the kitchen door. "Now, Jade." I looked at her. Then I looked at Bella, smirking at me over the rim of her glass. "Okay, Mom," I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. "I'll go get ready." I walked into the house. But I didn't go to the kitchen. I went to the living room, where the main computer was connected to the giant outdoor projector screen.